You're listening to The Framework of Tomorrow, hosted by Keegan Goldfarb and brought to you by Rally Network, and our sponsor, Ashley Uank, who is a YouTuber conquering the nurse life, one YouTube video at a time. Please go check her out at Ashley Uank on YouTube. Thank you, and enjoy this episode of The Framework of Tomorrow. Hello, and welcome to The Framework of Tomorrow. I am Keegan Goldfarb, your host of this amazing show, and I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about Rally Network before we get this episode started today. So Rally Network is a network that I am a part of, and we're a network of podcasters. There's many different podcasts on there right now. I believe there's 5 in all, including me. Our network actually just launched as you're listening to this episode. So it is April 6th and we have just launched. So definitely go and check us out at rallynetwork.net for some amazing content. A couple of the shows, we have a Nintendo show that just joined. We have a show called BRCM with my good friend Mike and his sister Grace. And they just talk about life in general and just a variety of different topics. Just shout out to them. Their podcast is amazing. I love them. I also have another podcast on Rally Network called Wonderful Nonsense that me and my co-host Quaid, we talk about wonderful different things. We talk about a very much variety of topics. It's just kind of to relate to this new decade of the 2020s. We have a sports show on there. We have, like I said, the Nintendo show, and then there's me. As of right now, I believe we have a couple more that are coming. But as of my knowledge, that's what I know right now. Speaking of Nintendo, I just wanted to talk a little bit about Animal Crossing. So I just got Animal Crossing, and I am really enjoying the game so far. It's really fun, and I've been playing with a couple of my friends. And for those who don't know, Animal Crossing is a Nintendo game. I'm not being paid to say this. I'm just giving my my little opinion about it quick. It's a Nintendo game, and it's just super fun. You get to like fish and catch bugs and build little houses. It's almost like Minecraft, but I don't know. It's really, there's no like monsters or anything. So it's just really chill, and you can just have fun with your friends. Anyway, it's not what this episode is about, though. I just wanted to give a little suggestion. If you want to go pick up a game, if you're bored, Animal Crossing. It's great. So my topic for today is the future is now. I genuinely believe that we are living in the future currently and now. And here's why. So my first point is, well, of course, the internet. I think we are living in the future pretty much almost mainly because of the internet. Stephen Hawking once said that we are all now connected by the internet, like neurons in a giant brain, which is crazy to think about because we are connected. I mean, there are articles out there and things that are saying because of the internet we're like less connected, which you could argue that too with social media and such. But I'm not going to count social media as the part of. I mean, it is the internet, and it's a big part of the internet. But social media is kind of its own little thing, and I feel like I could talk about a whole episode about the differences in how we socialize now versus how we did back then. Oh, there's an idea. But the internet has connected us more than it has like 100 years ago per se. You can literally send a message to anyone and get a response in minutes. 100 years ago, you couldn't do that. You could send a message to anyone. I mean, I don't know. You could send a message by telegram, or they used pigeons or carriers to bring to different kingdoms, depending on the time period you're from. But you couldn't receive a response in a matter of minutes or seconds. It's pretty crazy that I can send a message to someone. Say I have a friend in Asia, and I could send her a message and be like, "Hey, what's up?" And she literally respond in a matter of 2 minutes. That is insane. It would take months until you receive a message. Way back in the day, before the internet, before technology even entered the conversation on that. Secondly, the internet, there's just so much. You can order products and receive those in days with the click of a button. That's pretty insane. As well as, man, the internet, there's so much about the internet. We have just databases upon databases of information now on the internet. You want to hear about anything, you go on the internet. I mean, you're right now listening to this through the power of the internet, and you're learning about why and how we're living in the future. So I think the internet is a big part of it, because we can spread information so much faster than we could, and it's literally instantaneous. I could upload this episode on Mondays, which is when I upload, by the way, and you could literally, from the point I click upload, and it uploads to Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts. I don't know if I actually am on those yet, but you can listen to it within the second I click that button and it uploads. It's just boom. You can listen to this content, this information. You can go to any library. I know the college I go to has a library database where you can click almost any article, or I know there's some books in there, and I just think that's insane. You can access so much more information than you could if, back in the day, let's say 100 years ago, you're like, man, I'm having some struggles remembering how to make a pie or something like that. You're like, shoot, I gotta go ask grandma, or I gotta go ask my mom or the neighbor across the street. How do you make a pie again? And then they tell you. But that takes way longer than it would now. Now you can pull up Google and be like, yo, how do I make a pie? And type that in. And then there's, let me do an experiment here. Let me see. How to make a pie. I'm just typing that into Google right now. I get 976 million results in 0.72 seconds. We are living in the future. If I can find, they might not all be about making pies, but for Google to search and find me 976 million results in not even a second, 0.72 seconds. That is ridiculous. We're living in the future. This is my whole point. We're living in the future. So yes, the internet is a big part of that for sure. Secondly, I think we're living in the future because we are way more intelligent than we have ever been. I mean, obviously in the present, you're always way more intelligent than you've ever been in the past. But on if you would put a scale up on how smart we are compared to we have been previously and how fast that's accelerated, it's ridiculous. Because, say 100 years ago, we are more literate, more people can read, and more people are educated in the world on average than ever before. I looked it up, did a little research, and I found an article that said between the 1900s and 2012, right? The IQ of the average person rose by nearly 30 points. So the IQ of the average person has gone up by 30 points since the 1900s. This was on the American Psychological Association, their website, just in case you wanted to look up a little more about this on how IQs have changed. But that means that the average person this is from the 1900s to 2012. It's rose 30 points. And that means that the average person of 2012, the year of 2012, we may even be smarter now. Now it's 2020. It's been 8 years since then. But not as much as a drastic change as this. The average person of 2012 had a higher IQ than 95% of the population had in the 1900s. 95% of the population had in the 1900s. We are drastically more smarter than we have ever been, like, ever. That's pretty crazy. I think another reason why we are more, I guess, intelligent is I don't think people have to worry. Obviously, there's people that do. I don't think there's people that have to worry about pure survival as much as we used to on a daily basis. I'm not saying some people don't have to worry about where their next meal comes from or where they're going to be sleeping tonight. There are people like that out there. But on average, on a daily basis, most people don't have to worry about survival as much as they used to on a daily basis. And so now we focus more on learning and absorbing information. And I wouldn't say there's a difference between learning and absorbing information, because absorbing information, if you walk down the street and you see a billboard on the side of the street that says whether or not how true it would be, it'd be like I don't know, Crest toothpaste, and it's like 9 out of 10 doctors recommend this, and blah 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 blah. You just absorb information. Now you're gonna remember that, and you're like, oh, 9 out of 10 doctors recommend Crest. You know what I mean? That's absorbing information, whether or not it's true or not. I can't fact check Crest, but that is absorbing information. And so here's another thing that's really, really, really interesting. Although people cannot read, not all people can read 1,000 words each day. This is the real number estimated reaching the human eyes and ears each day. So we don't always read 100,000 words each day, but that is what this is saying, is that's the real number estimated to be reaching our human eyes and ears every day. So after adding pictures, video games, etc., pictures, videos, games, stuff like that, the average person will reach a volume of 34 gigabytes of information per day on average. So 34 gigabytes of information per day. I did a little calculations. So with that 34 gigabytes a day on average, every year, the average human being stores or takes in I'm horrible with saying numbers, 12,410 gigabytes of information a year. 12,410 gigabytes a year. That's how much the average person takes in a year of information. And for comparison, that is 12.4 terabytes. That is a lot of information to be taking in every year. That is insane. Not that you're going to remember necessarily all of that, but that's how much like your brain is remembering, or not remembering, but taking in every year. 12.4 terabytes on average. And that might not be accurate for every human being, but on average, 12.4 terabytes. My computer doesn't even have 12.4 terabytes. That is insane. My computer has, I think it's 2.5 terabytes in my computer, which that's a lot of storage. So for humans to be able to hold, 6 times more than my computer can, that's insane. That's ridiculous. And so our understanding as human beings of the world in general has changed in such a short time period. Basically from the 1900s to now has been the biggest like change in our technology and our advancements. And we're even going quicker than that. Even today, like it's just shortening on how quick our technology is evolving. So something I found that scientists did in 2019 is scientists were recently able to modify the genes of a young girl to cure her cancer. That is insane. It's not saying like, oh, we found the cure to cancer, but for this one young girl, scientists were able to modify the genes of this young girl to cure her cancer. The fact that we can even go into somebody, like a human being's genes, and like modify it so that cancer doesn't happen, like it just goes away. That's insane. Modern medicine in general is just way, way, way better than it used to be. And it's way more advanced. Like even back in the 1600s, if you got the cold, like even sometimes just like a normal cold we get as humans, or like the flu, they didn't know what to do. They didn't have answers. The medical field did not have answers for that back then. And often it resulted in the person dying. And if you got an infection in your hand, they had to amputate it most of the time because there was an infection. They didn't know how to treat it. They would try with some different herbal things, but most of the time it wouldn't work. And they're like, oh shoot, it doesn't work. What do we do? So they would just cut it off. They'd cut the people's hands off because they're like, well, what else do? We got to stop it from spreading, you know? That's insane. And something I saw the other day is, so a group of scientists and medical professionals, they did the first full-on limb transplant. This guy, his hand, I believe his hand was, they had to amputate his hand. I'm not sure the reason why, but they had to amputate this guy's hand. And what they ended up doing was they took a transplant, I'm assuming from a deceased corpse. I'm not sure about that. But they were able to make a full-on hand transplant, and that guy had movement in this hand. Like, that's another person's hand, and they were able to, he can move it. I don't think it has complete movement, but the fact that it could even, like, work even a little bit, you can get, like, a little twitch out of it, that's crazy. We are living in the future. It's insane. And even today, we live about twice as long as we did 100 years ago, on average. We live longer lives. Probably mostly because of modern medicine. I mean, modern medicine it's amazing these days. And shout out to literally anyone in the medical field, because you guys are insane. Not like you're cool, like that kind of insane. You're amazing. You're some of the coolest people out there. Honestly, so cool. I wish I could be in the medical field because you guys are just so amazing. We have self-driving cars. We have Teslas. I know there's other brands that are doing it as well, but that's the first one that comes to my mind. self-driving cars. We can have cars that can drive. I mean, the fact that we have cars is insane. We have things that we can get in and transport us places faster than we ever could. Planes, airplanes, any kind of like automobile. But like even now, we're starting to change cars, which are like, they use engines and pistons and stuff like that to move. It's all like, there's cars out there that are going to be completely like electric based. Like they're not going to need these engines and stuff like that. It's going to be all electric. Everything's going to be electric inside of them. And that's insane. That's crazy. And they can self-drive now, even crazier than that. But yeah, we have different fuel options too. Like I said, Tesla, electric cars. We're starting to go away from using oil and stuff like that because we're just finding more efficient things to use. Obviously, electric cars aren't necessarily more efficient than oil-based cars right now because we haven't, at least I don't believe, we have found like electricity to be more efficient than using oils and stuff like that. But we're having different fuel options. So we're having a variety, and I'm sure in the next 25 to 30 years, maybe even before that, electric cars might be more of a bigger thing that we'll use, and we might find a more efficient way to use electricity and to create electricity. I mean, we already have some pretty like efficient things to do that. We have VR technology. If you have not tried VR, I would suggest it, because especially like go out and try VR. If you know someone with VR, if you know me personally, I have VR, so come on over and let me show you this thing, because VR is super cool. And VR recently has made some pretty big steps in how much you're being immersed in VR technology, virtual reality. But here's the thing. The VR headset that I have right now is going to be obsolete in the next 5 to 10 years because VR technology has just been making leaps and bounds in how fast they are like becoming more futuristic and more immersive. And right now you actually use controllers to like that's your hands inside of the VR. And one of my predictions is that you're going to be you're going to have gloves soon, and maybe you won't even need those. Like it can just sense your hands. But you won't even need the controllers, and you'll just be able to move. And for reference, by the way, on how VR has made pretty big jumps is, so I have the Oculus Rift S. So the first Oculus Rift, you had to set up cameras around your room to kind of see yourself. And that's how it kind of projected where you were moving inside of the VR. But now you don't even need to set up those cameras anymore because the cameras are built on the headset. So it like knows where you are, and you don't have to go through the hassle of setting that all up now. Once again, insane. I know I'm saying that a lot. But I mean, it's just kind of blowing my mind on how far we have come. Another thing we have made a pretty big jump in is we have a bigger understanding of our universe. Astronomy is really, really interesting to me. I really love learning about space and, you know, how, I mean, we don't know for sure how exactly a black hole works, but the fact that we have explanations that we believe are true right now is insane. And I think science in general is just so cool to me, because even though everything we know about science isn't like, there's no facts in science. That's the cool thing about science, I think, is that there's always room for developing opinions and ideas into science. So for instance, how a planet is made, that we just have like ideas about how a planet is made, and we have gone through different simulations and tests on like, you know, how this planet was formed. Those could be proven wrong. Someone could come along and be like, no, that's not how it worked. And then they go through tests and they're like, oh shoot, yeah, that isn't how it works. Let's let's change it. I think a little going off topic here, but science, like I said, is stated in all of my science books that I ever read as there's no facts in science. There's just theories. It's all theories on how things work. And a lot of people will get caught up in the fact that they're like, oh, well, this is how it worked. That's how my science book told me. And that's fact. That's not fact. It's a theory. And I just don't like when people do that. That's kind of annoying because there's always room for differing ideas. And if those ideas can prove more true than the ideas we have now, then I think there's room for that. Anyway, that's a little off topic, and for my last kind of point on why we're living in the future, computers are insanely they've evolved so fast. When we sent a man to the moon in 1969, the computer that was, operating that mission was about as big as like a pretty big room, of computers, just computers everywhere. And that was the computer that they run off, the servers and stuff like that. Now, the computer of that size fits on my wrist with my smartwatch. That's insane. In what is that? 50 years. 50 years, we took a computer the size of a massive room with servers and all that stuff like that, and we combined it all the way down to be able to fit on our wrist. That's crazy. That's insane. I know I've been saying that a lot, but it is. It's crazy. Their computers are just so, they're evolving faster and faster. And I remember when I was younger, there was USB sticks that would hold 2 megabytes of information. And that was a lot. But now there's like USB sticks. I don't really know how exactly big, but I mean, I have a micro USB, or not a micro USB, a micro SD card that can hold 250 gigabytes of information. And that's smaller than the USB sticks they used with like 2 gigabytes or whatever on them, or 2 megabytes. I don't remember. But like storage of information has just gone up so fast. Like we're just evolving so fast. But yes, so that's why I think we are living in the future. Who knows where we're gonna be with technology in the coming future, but I think it's gonna be really cool to be able to experience this and be in a time when we are evolving our technology so fast. Random history fact of the day. This is a new thing I'm going to do at the end of my episodes. I hope you guys like it. It's just going to be like a little random little bit of information at the end of our episodes. So the random history fact of the day, today, in this episode, is how pigeons were used in the World Wars. So if you didn't know this, they used pigeons in World War I and World War II, primarily as messenger birds. So they'd give little pieces of paper and give them to the pigeons, and they'd fly off with the message. That's what they normally do. But there was a scientist for World War II who wanted to use pigeons to go drop bombs on the enemy, because the missiles of the time were not exactly accurate in how they were aimed and projected into hitting a target. They weren't super accurate, so most of the time they'd actually miss because they were measured in miles. So if you're like just a little bit off, it's gonna miss because it's measured and calculated by the mile. So this guy is like, hey, let's use pigeons. So he decides to make a missile that has like a little screen and had about 3 pigeons, and they'd peck. And according to the peck, the missile would kind of change its trajectory. And that's how, and it was actually super accurate in the simulations they did. Luckily for the pigeons, they never shot one off, but it was going to be super accurate. This never actually was ever used in a war or in a field. There was no pigeons that were killed that we know of out of this experiment. But that's just a little bit of information. They did try to use pigeons to shoot missiles off in the World Wars around that time period. But like I said, luckily for the pigeons, that was never used. Good for the pigeons. But yes, thank you for listening to this episode of The Framework of Tomorrow. I really, really hope you enjoy the content that I'm pushing out here. And please tell your friends and make sure to check out Rally Network for rallynetwork.net for some really awesome shows. Like I said, I'm Keegan Goldfarb, and this was The Framework of Tomorrow.